Have you ever wondered what it takes to turn a small startup into a billion-dollar unicorn? Today's guest has done it not once, not twice, but three times. From scaling teams at Uber, Viho, and Industrious to revolutionizing how startups can hire with the game changing rent a recruiter model, he has helped over 400 founders build their dream teams faster and smarter. A seasoned venture scaler, newsletter writer, and an improvisation trained girl dad. This founder's journey is filled with lessons for anyone looking to grow. Welcome to another episode of our Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. In this episode, I'll be talking with Jake, the founder of Rent a Recruiter. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you would like to share with our audience?
Something that I keep on going back to is it's a Gandhi quote. It's be the change. Be the change you want to see
Mhm.
in the world. It's something that I've had with me ever since I was like very, very early on in my career. When there was
Mhm.
something I didn't like and I wanted to change, I always leaned back on that and decided to take a bias towards action and make that change and, take chances and take risks. And it served me very well in my life and in my career.
Awesome. Great stuff. So, Jake, I am eager to learn more about you as a person. Could you take us back to your roots and share with our listeners about your upbringing, childhood? How did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become into the entrepreneur's space, right? And were there any key influences from your family or surroundings that played a significant role in shaping your entrepreneur spirit?
Yeah. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, all more on the blue collar, like business owner entrepreneur side. So my dad was an entrepreneur and owned his own businesses, owned a restaurant, owned a tree removal company. My
Hmm.
uncles, his brothers, all owned their own businesses. Even my grandmother owned her own business. She owned a television station in the northwestern U.S. So
Wow.
yeah, it was seeing like this whole legacy of like my family taking control over their destiny and owning their own businesses and being entrepreneurs. So I always gravitated towards that. It's like in my blood. And yeah, it really, that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted
Hmm.
to, be an entrepreneur and start something myself. And that's really what propelled me into startups, and what made me just fascinated by startups is just like that, the ability to create, to build, to uh, have such a huge impact over something. And that's where I really got my start in the entrepreneurship world, is watching like my grandmother and my dad take those risks and those chances, and being entrepreneurs themselves.
Awesome. That's great. And then I can imagine a lot of us come from a background where we don't have any entrepreneurial spirits around in our families. Most of us has this background of like dad working for somebody 9 to 5, and then you don't want to be 9 to 5 guy anymore because you've seen the challenges they have faced. You never had the best video game or best bicycle or bike, because
Yeah.
your dad wasn't a businessman, right? And then there's other side of the spectrum, where it's people like yourself who always had these business influences in their life, right? How did it help you out while you were starting your journey when you got graduated from your school? What happened exactly, and what was the pathway you took towards getting to this goal?
Yeah. Well, my dad always told me, Jake, keep your nose in the books so you can get a really great job and you can
Hmm.
work in air conditioning and not outside like your old man. I mean, he was very much like, he owned his own business, but it was a small operation. He was a blue collar guy, and
Mhm.
like I learned a lot from him in terms of work ethic and like what it really takes to be successful on your own. But he's put me on this path of like getting a college degree, which he didn't have, and
Mhm.
always talked about he had a brother-in-law that did really well, got an accounting degree, went to work in pharma, did really well for himself, and that was the path I actually took. In college, I ended up getting an accounting degree, actually from the same school that my uncle did, and I started my career at Ernst and Young in audit, and I had that
Mhm.
9 to 5, or 9 to 8 or 9 to 9 during
Nine
busy
to nine. Yeah.
type of type of
Yeah.
job. So I was in the greener grass that my dad always talked about, but then I
Mhm.
realized that it really wasn't for me. I wanted to get more like my hands dirty. I wanted to actually like work inside of a business instead of accounting for the accountants who were accounting for the business being done.
Mhm.
And that led me to my first startup, which came right after Ernst and Young. I decided to take a shot and found a company, and yeah, it just kind of took off from there. I ended up being in startups and working in that world for the next decade plus.
Awesome. Do you still remember what was the first startup? What was the problem you were trying to solve that time?
Yeah, it was a crowdfunding startup when crowdfunding was really popular. We
Mhm.
were working with colleges and universities to help them raise money from their young alumni. So we were creating
Mhm.
these day of giving campaigns and building the software to help run these campaigns at colleges, and helped quite a few raise over $100,000 from the young alumni in these campaigns. We actually my co-founder convinced me. He's like, we need to be out in the Silicon Valley. We're building a tech startup. We need to get out
Mhm.
there. And we did. And we got accepted into a startup accelerator and got a little bit of money from that. Yeah, we did everything we set out to do. We built a product. We got customers. We got to revenue. We had that amazing experience at the startup accelerator. And ultimately, we couldn't take it to the next level. So we ended up having to spin it down, but that's what led me to Uber. I was very fortunate. I got a job at Uber after that and worked there for the better part of the next 4 years. And that's what really catapulted my career in tech.
Mhm. And before we jump onto the story of your current venture, which is the rent recruiter model, I want to understand what did you learn in Uber which was different than what you have learned before Uber?
Mm. Yeah, Uber, I learned so much during my time there. I think one of the bigger takeaways, especially like that was different from my time in the startup, was how important data is and how important experimentation is. Like
Mhm.
everything we did at Uber, especially on the operations side, it was all built around experiments. So we always held back a control group. We were always trying to like we worked across city teams and tried to share what worked in our cities and documented what really worked so that someone else could try to recreate that same test and see if it was not just like a local thing that worked, if it was like a regional thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I learned a lot around how to structure experiments and hold back controls and p values and all that good stuff. But it really just like built into like my own thinking, my own DNA of how important it is to like be mindful of data and use that in decision making, and to like really be strategic in that way, and short tests, small tests, and then how to really take something that is working and incrementally scale it up and get to a place where it's successful not just in the local market but like across the country. So yeah, a lot of good learnings in that way.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really powerful because a lot of people I interview, they're like ex Microsoft, Uber, or Meta, Google. everyone has a different perspective because of the roles and the people they are surrounded by in the organization, because these giant organizations, sometimes you don't even know who is working on the other side of the floor, not just
Right.
like the multiple floors, right? But very few of them actually mention about testing based on data analysis and decision making based on trying different things. um, and I would like to uncover more on that. But let's move to the future, which is the Rent a Recruiter. Let's talk about the where the story actually begin. Where did the idea for Rent a Recruiter came from? When wh- what does the product actually do, or the service actually do? Who is it for, and what's the main problem you're trying to solve here?
Yeah. So Venture Scaler started a few years ago, actually as a podcast, as a
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel. Uh, Me and my partner, we realized there wasn't a lot of great content out there for founders around how to hire really well, and how to
Mm-hmm.
set up the right like recruiting infrastructure, and like how to set up the right people ops infrastructure, and how to just run a really amazing process around hiring talent, which arguably I think is the most important part of any company, is the people that you hire. And if you can get that right, that solves a lot of problems. You can get by on a lot of things if you have the right people in the right seats.
Yep.
So we started with content, ended up falling backwards into consulting. I had a really good friend of mine from Uber was working with a company called Viho. They're a last mile delivery marketplace for like e-commerce brands. They do like the delivery for Warby Parker, HelloFresh, etc. And they brought us in to help them with employer brand, with like building up some of their ops infrastructure, people ops infrastructure. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we got inside, we realized you guys are growing like crazy. Like we came in and they were at 70 people, and they had plans to get to 500 in about a year.
Wow.
And they didn't have they didn't have a head of people. They didn't have a head of talent acquisition. They didn't even have an internal recruiter at the time.
Hmm.
So we saw this problem and immediately tried to solve it by, like, what I did. We turned around, we said, hey, listen, we have these two amazing recruiters. We've worked with them before. They're great. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to be a recruiting agency. We don't want to charge commissions on salaries or do the contingency guarantee type model. Just do the same thing you're doing with us. Let's just pay hourly for their time, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
one will work directly with your head of warehouse operations on the driver side, and one will work directly with your CTO.
Hmm.
And they loved it. And we helped them get, in 6 months, we helped them ramp from 70 people to about 280, 285. So help 4x their team in 6 months. And a big part of that was the recruiters. And they liked it so much that actually, after we ended our 6 month engagement, they asked, like, can we keep Jennifer on? She's great. We're trying to backfill that role, but we don't have someone quite yet. Can we keep her on for a few more months? And that was the thing that clicked for me. That was
Mm-hmm.
my aha moment of, wow, we really solved like a big painful problem for this company. I wonder how many other founders are struggling with this. And then the more and more I talk to founders, the more I realize it's just a huge gap and a big problem.
Hmm.
A lot of founders can't justify bringing on a full-time recruiter. It doesn't make sense in terms of like their salary. They just can't justify that, or they just don't have enough hiring to do to make sense to bring somebody on full time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't lay anybody off. What are you going to do? So their alternative has been to work with recruiting agencies, and the typical agency model is to charge 25% of first year salary for anyone that they
Yep.
help, like they make the introduction to. So you hire somebody for $100,000 and you're paying 25 grand on just that one hire. And you have to do that over and over. I remember talking to a founder. He told me, he's like, Jake, I hire 4 people and I can't make an offer to the fifth because I just spent that person's entire salary on
Yep.
commission fees. So that's our model, and that's how we make ourselves like really different in the market. Is I have this incredible team of fractional recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
They have worked in high growth companies. So they've worked at Uber, Instacart, Lime, Amazon, Dropbox, Carta, you name it. And they come in and work with your company as if they're an in-house recruiter. So they partner directly with the founder, directly with the hiring manager, and we
Mhm.
just charge hourly for their time. No commissions, nothing like that. No other hidden fees. So you just get direct access to this incredible recruiter. That like if I'm a seed or a Series A stage startup, like wow,
Mhm.
I'm I'm getting like all this knowledge and expertise from a recruiter who's been doing this for 7, 8, 9, 10 plus years,
Mm.
and I get to kind of like ramp it up when I need it or ramp it down when I don't need it. Our clients can pause when they finished a hiring sprint and start back up when they have a new role to hire for. So
Mm.
it's a lot of flexibility. It's it's really something I wish I had. My first startup. It was something that in working with so many founders, it's really trying to solve that pain point and that problem and make it a win-win-win for everybody.
Indeed, indeed. And I can think of so many people right now who would have been benefited out of this service already, because you see, the first thing happened to a startup when they get like either funded by an accelerator program or seed funded by a VC is they want to, get great minds into their team. And it is so difficult. And I can share that pain with you because I have been in that place where I have paid quite a lot of money to the recruiters for doing the same job, which, somebody who has had like 15 years of experience working with Uber and big companies could have helped me with. So when you had this epiphany, did you look into the market? Like, because I'm sure the model is new, but were there any other products or services? What was going on at that time, and what did you see from your research
Yeah.
that encouraged you to move ahead with it?
Yeah. Well, there's in the industry, there's something that's like the RPO model. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's I forget what it stands like, resource process optimization. I forget what it stands for, but it's something
Mm-hmm.
similar. It's like you get access to fractional or like whatever it is, like fractional talent of some sort. But it usually comes with like bigger contracts, bigger commitments. This just doesn't give you the same kind of flexibility or access to the same type of recruiter talent. So those are the
Mm-hmm.
things I saw that was missing. Honestly, like I knew that the market was saturated, that there was no shortage of recruiters out there. So I focused a lot of my focus, like a lot of my attention on talking to founders. And fortunately, I have like a really great network of founders. I worked at a startup studio previously, so just have like a lot of exposure to early stage companies and founders, and just had lots of conversations around how they hire, what they think about in terms of like bringing on help with recruiters. And I just kept on hearing the same story over and over again, is that it really felt like either I have to just brute force and do this myself and become a recruiter half the time, half my job when I'm hiring, or
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to outsource it, I need to pay these commissions. Like
Enormous
I have to pay to
commissions, yeah.
play, and it doesn't make sense. I can't make it work. So
Mm.
usually they just struggle through it. That's
Mm.
that's usually the answer, and then they just kind of turn their mind off to recruiters as an option because it just doesn't make sense. So that's what I saw in like my conversations and research. So it was really just trying to introduce this new model that, yeah, if I was a founder, this is what I'd want. I'd want access to an
Mm.
amazing recruiter. I'd want to be able to like, flip it on, flip it off as needed. And I want to be able to do it in a fractional way. I want to have to like commit to like a huge contract or, like a what is it, like a regular, like a retainer, like I have to make a big commitment just to get access to the talent I need to bring on the talent I need.
Mm. Mm. Cool. And I want to uncover a little bit more deeper onto this topic. But before we go into that, I have a different question. Um, can you walk us through the renter recruiter model and why it has been so successful for early stage startups? Because you see, there are startups with a lot of funding,
Mhm.
but the early stage startups are sort of like, I feel like they're the backbones of the startup world, because that
Yeah,
they give you, like, they do whatever they have to, basically, to keep alive, right?
yeah.
How does it support them?
So we work with like a mix of early stage companies. I have companies I work with that are at the seed stage. I have several Series A companies, and I've worked with and still working with a couple Series B companies. I
Mhm.
think the problems are just a little bit different. For for seed into Series A, it's usually they don't have anybody on the talent acquisition team. They don't have a recruiter. They don't have
Mhm.
a head of people. Excuse me. So usually that work is landing on the founder. It's landing on the like department heads. So the value becomes okay. I get we can take all of this work, all that heavy lifting of like going out and finding candidates and sourcing candidates and doing the cold outreach and reviewing resumes and doing the first screening call and scheduling that next interview and doing all the handoffs in between the process. All that work goes away, and it's a huge value add to their team. They also get to
Mhm.
look like not a lot of early stage companies have the time and capacity to do their own outbound sourcing. So just by bringing in someone to do that, you're getting more looks at higher quality candidates.
Mm.
So it's a huge value add there. As they get a little bit later stage, a little bit past Series A into Series B, I think the issue is there's two things. One is that usually it's like sometimes they'll already have like a head of people or someone on the people team, but they just need more horsepower. And
Mm.
they to have that person come in and help while they're focusing on all these other like on benefits, on onboarding, on like all the HR issues and policies. Like they have someone who can manage that talent acquisition piece of their work and take that off their plate. I think the second piece for these larger companies is it gives them, and same is true for the early, like for the earlier stage. You have the flexibility to turn it up and turn it down,
Mm.
so or pause if needed. So you don't run the risk of if you miss a sales forecast and your hiring plan needs to change. Like, what do we do with this recruiter that we hired
Mm.
for time, right? So there's a lot of like a peace of mind that comes with knowing that you're working with this expert recruiter that you wish you could hire full time, but you don't know if you need them full
Mm.
time. You might have a big sprint coming up and you might need to hire really heavy for like 3 months. And
Mm.
then you might fall back down to steady state where you really only need like 10 hours a week. So I think those like are like the a little bit of the differences between these early stage companies, but that's the biggest thing. That
Mm.
usually when it comes to hiring, it ebbs and flows. It comes in waves.
Yeah.
So have like a big sprint where you're hiring, you raised around, you need to hire 5, 10, 15 people. You do that for 3, 6, 9 months, and then you slow down, and you might need to hire like one, two, three more people until
Mm.
you raise that next round in 12 to 18 months. So I think that's a big piece is the flexibility that comes with it.
do do they also, so I have been in connection with a lot of seed funded startups where they keep trying or try to hire fractional CMOs, fractional CTOs, fractional CFOs. Is this some kind of recruitment you guys help them to do, or is this something which is not into your like expertise, or is it something which is addition to what you have like in your? package or something?
Yeah. I mean, we've helped hire like all kinds of roles with
Mm.
our companies. So we've helped hire, sales, marketing, operation roles from like junior all the way up to senior, like director, VP level roles. We helped
Mhm.
hire on the engineering side, a lot of software engineering, hiring product managers, designers, etc. But then, yeah, we've helped in addition to that, like what you'd think of like normal roles at a tech company. Also
Mm.
hired like fractional folks. We've helped hire offshore talent and like ran those searches. We've also helped hire crazy things for companies just because it was what they needed help with hiring. We helped hire for one company sea captains, no
Mhm.
joke. We've helped hire handymen, handy people for another company. It's just like it was part of their model. And if you put a really great recruiter on it, oftentimes they're going to be able to figure it out. Helped
Mm.
hire nurses for another company. So
Wow.
the main focus has been on working with like tech companies on those types of like typical tech roles across like engineering, product, sales, marketing, go to market. But yeah, we've helped with a lot of different roles and fractional. We helped hire a few of those like fractional CMO roles or like a more of like a project based role to bring somebody in, and then with the hopes that maybe they will convert to full time or become like a really great future full time hire for the team.
Mm. Mm. Makes sense. Makes sense. And during this journey, then, what's the trend coming in near future? What do you see when you sign a contract with your customers? What is the trend coming? Is it most of them are moving towards more contracting type of role, or is it still the same as like a full-time ish, but then they struggle to find full-time people because of the competition in the market? How does it looks?
Are you talking about recruiters specifically or for like all kinds of roles?
Like talent pool, for example, I'm a startup. I just got seed funded, right? So
Yep.
I reach out to you and then I say I need a fractional CMO, but I need two full-time developers and then I need one growth hacker, say. What kind of trends you have seen the founders come to you with? Are they more willing to get full-time people on their teams, or they're more willing to do like contractual jobs, not contract with you as a
Right.
recruitment team, but the end talent they want to get?
I guess I'm seeing a mix. There's still, I think, like a lot of founders that I've been working with are still leaning towards making full time hires.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's usually when they're like ready to, you know, when they feel the pain, they're at a point where they need to bring somebody on, and that person, it's usually like a full time capacity that's needed. Uh,
Mm.
I have a few founders, a few companies we're working with that just lean more. I think it's founder preference.
Right. Okay.
Some founders they're just bought in and okay with doing bringing on fractional people, working with consultants to fill some gaps, do it like work, hiring folks offshore. I think there's some folks are just like more open to it. They've had good experiences doing it. They
Mm-hmm.
figured out how to make that really work well for their business. And I think there is another camp of founders that it's they want to stay away from that because they want to build. They're more focused on other things. They might be focused more on building a strong culture. So that aligns itself more with like building like a great team and bringing on full time hires. Some founders that they want to do like hybrid. They want to bring people into the office.
Mm.
So a lot like some of those other options go away when you're trying to do that. So I think it's a matter of preference. Uh,
Mm.
I am seeing, companies like we're working with more open probably than in the past to fractional to offshore, but still, I'm like a lot of the searches we're doing are for full time hires.
Got it. Got it. Okay, great. And I wanted to learn more about like which regions you operate in, what kind of different services you provide with Venture Scaler. But before we jump into that, let's take a step back. I want to uncover some of your personal stories, if you
Sure.
don't mind. I learned that you've used Uber to propose your wife. Would you be able to share that story with us?
I did. Yeah, this was back in like 2016, I think, 2015, 2016. Um, yeah, I was getting ready to propose to my wife, and I thought, well, what's a unique way that I can do it? And at the time, there was probably like, I don't know, 2 or 3 thousand employees at Uber. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm probably like one of 2 or 3 thousand people that could use Uber in this way to like do the proposal. So yeah, I told my wife, I kind of planted seeds for a few months. I said, hey,
Hmm.
Uber Pool is coming to Phoenix, which it wasn't.
Okay. Hmm.
That we were going to be launching this new product, which we weren't. That
Hmm.
we wanted to do a video. We wanted to like kind of do like a commercial type spot for the launch, uh,
Hmm.
which we weren't we weren't doing any of that. But I convinced her that we were doing this video, that we were going to try to do it on a budget, that we were looking for like people that could be in the commercial. I was like, Haley, I think you'd be great for it. What do you think? And I got her bought in over like a couple months. Like, okay, it's probably going to come up in like a couple months. I'll keep that in mind. Da da da. And then yeah, I got her convinced that she was going to be in a commercial for the launch of Uber Pool in Phoenix.
Hmm.
Uh, got a driver that we paid for the day to pick her up. And then I had a whole film crew. I had her sign a video release form, the whole nine. Like my marketing team was awesome. They just pulled out all the stops, and we got her in a car. And then the people that she was picking up as the passengers were her mom and her sister.
Hmm.
And she told me after, she's like, this is dumb. We all look alike. Like, am I supposed to know that they're my mom and my sister, or am I supposed to be in like an actress and pretend that they're just people I'm meeting for the first time? And then
Yeah.
yeah, I had her get dropped off at a restaurant, and I was at the other end, like basically like on my knee getting ready to propose, and it was a huge shock. I surprised the heck out of her, and because I said the whole thing was a commercial, I was literally able to have like a film crew follow her around, so I have the whole thing on video.
Awesome. That would be great to watch. Trust me. If you're okay to share with us, but yeah, that would be
I
cool.
think it's on YouTube. I'd have to find the link, but I think I
Okay.
posted that like years ago. Yeah.
I would love to see that if you would be able to share.
I'll share it
That would
with
be
you
great.
later. Definitely.
Great stuff. Cool. And one more. How does being a girl dad influences your perspective on leadership and growth? Because I've seen a couple of posts you've been posting, and then I realized that this would be a really good tip for me, considering that I will be, soon into your shoes.
Yeah.
How does it feel? And then what are the tips you want to give us, the other founders or
Uh,
dads?
yeah. No, I'm a girl dad. I have 2 girls. They're amazing. I love them to
Hmm.
death. And I'll tell you like the difference between being a founder, like it's not like 10, 12 years ago, when I had no obligations. I had nothing. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a wife. I didn't even have the prerequisites for any of that. I wasn't even like dating at that time or like seeing anybody. Um, and the difference between that and now, like, I don't know, kids, you have all these ups and downs as a founder, right?
Mm,
And a lot of downs, a lot of like really tough days where it's like, oh my gosh, this client canceled, or this employee quit, or we lost this deal. And I my first time around, I had co-founders to kind of commiserate with. and that helped. But you also know we're all going through the same stuff. We're all feeling like really bad. For me now, though, I'm lucky I work from home. If I need to, I can walk out of the room and just like see my 3-year-old playing, and she'll like, oh, do you want to play? Like, do you want to do? I'm doing it. Like, we're playing tea party. It's like, that's amazing. Like, I'm going to
Mm,
not focus on the terrible thing that happened with the business. I'm going to focus on having a tea party with my 3-year-old daughter. And
mm,
it's kind of, it makes it okay. It puts things in perspective. It's like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And this is why I'm going through this hard stuff. It's
mm,
to, provide for them, to make a great life for them. And they don't care that you like messed up a pitch or lost a big deal.
mm.
They just want to, hang out with their dad. So I think that's really nice. It puts things in perspective. I found it like a really great way to balance everything. But I think they make me a better founder for sure.
Mm. For sure, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I keep visiting my brother. He has a 2 year old, almost 2 year old, and every time I visit him, he just brings smile to me because he just doesn't care. He just want to get on my shoulder or potentially
Yeah.
get my watch out of my hand and then just throw it on the ground, play with its toys or something. But then I always think like I feel all of my stress is literally gone somewhere, which was like here while I was driving here or going
Yep.
to Tesco's for groceries and everything. And that gives me this feeling of like, okay, there's something more than work to the life, which is, you know, quite substantial. So yeah, totally, agree with your analogy here. Great stuff. Jake, I am enjoying this conversation quite a lot. I want to go on and on, but the problem is we are limited with the time, and
Of course.
so we have to jump into a quick fire round. But before we get into that, I want to share something with you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So I've got this quick drawing made and notes for you.
I
So
love
we
this.
will go through it. Potentially, you can tell me as you have drawn that wrong, and I'll correct it, or some points which you think is incorrect. So it started very privileged business family around you, but you had very good lessons from your dad, which helped you out in future where to understand where the value comes from. Then you went into EY, I'm guessing as a consultant.
Yep.
We all go as a consultant to these places where you have realized that you're good with numbers and then you wanted to do something different in your
Yep.
life. So that's what you did. You started crowdfunding platform, which you did quite well at some point. And then your journey took you to Uber, where you got into understanding of more how data works, how things could be tested fast, fail fast, and get more out of understanding of the data and
Yep.
how it could benefit your business. That enabled you to start a podcast, which I'm guessing was named Venture Scaler at that
It
time
was.
also.
Yep.
It
Yep.
was great stuff, which ultimately led to the understanding of like how startups specifically new teams struggling with getting talent recruited for themselves. So you help few people there in Viho, which led you to start a company, which is actually the perfect path for a startup, right? You figure out where the problem is and then you start working on it, isn't it?
I think consulting first is like such an underrated quote unquote hack to find product market fit. I think it's like overlooked because it's not sexy, it's not product driven. But if
Mm,
you can find a way to get a customer to pay you money to solve a problem, like
mm,
that's step one. It's like, what are you willing to pay me money for?
mm,
So if you can do that on a consulting basis, there's a very good likelihood that you can figure out how to build product around that.
mm. Interesting. Cool. So yeah, I think, and then just part of it, you started working with some fractional recruiters. I think one of them you mentioned Jennifer, and
Yeah.
then you figured out that founders are like complaining about like they end up paying the salary for one of the team members, and they just don't like this model. So you came
Yeah.
up with a new model, which kind of really worked out for you. And then obviously your proposal to your wife in front of your mom and sister. Um, yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't know. Is there anything we missed, or I should?
No, I love this. I want a copy of this
For sure, for sure.
afterward.
You'll get it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, great stuff. Cool. So I think that's where we are with this. Going back, so we have got six quick fire questions for you
Okay.
today. So you can answer them as quickly as you want. You
Okay.
ready?
Yes.
Great stuff. Cool. Number one, what's the top three strategies to figure out how to get best talent into your startup in 2024, 2025?
Ooh, trying to just get best talent into your startup. One is to get really focused on what you need the person to do. Like
Mhm.
figure out like when they come in the next 90, 180 days, if they only do one or two or three things, what are those things? Like get super clear on that. Two, once you like know what they're going to be doing, like get really tight on what the right persona is. Like what kind of background, what kind of experiences do you need this person to
Mhm.
have? And then three, I think, and I'm a big proponent of this. I think going out and finding that talent is like the best way to bring it in. Like there's something powerful around a founder or someone on the team at least like reaching out to candidates and saying like, hey, we saw you, we think you'd be a really great fit for this job because of like XYZ on your profile, we'd love to chat.
Mhm.
You'd be amazed at how many people are willing to have that conversation. And then it's a matter of convincing them that you're on this amazing mission and that you have like this is a great time to join your company, and you know kind of get them to jump on your own little rocket ship. But I think it's
Mm.
those three things. And I think it starts with like that planning step of really understanding what you're looking for, what they need to do, and like what great looks like in a candidate.
Definitely, definitely. And I love all the 3 points you mentioned, because I think that's something you cannot live with if you want to get talented people on your team. So that's
Yeah.
thank you for that. What book would you recommend to our audience, and why?
Ooh. I have like lots of recommendations. I uh oh, what's it? Give me a second. It's on my shelf. Yeah, that's it. High Output Management by Andy Grove.
Hmm.
Uh, I always love that one. I love it for nothing else, just like the chapters and the concept of high leverage activities. He goes into it in detail. He has like this whole like factory metaphor around like how to implement this. But the whole idea is that as like a founder or as a leader, you should be really focused on high leverage activities. Like what's like the one to many output. So like if you spend an hour of your time, is that going to have a higher output than like a one-to-one meeting versus like a one to many type of activity? So that really kind of opened up my mind to what it means to scale, not only like scale your business or your team, but to scale yourself.
Got it. Okay, great. I'll add that into my reading list, because I like productivity, uh, books a lot. So I'll do that, add into my list. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Ooh, it's a great question. Um, I think we talk about like, like successful. I think they're good at selling. And that
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be like the head of sales for their company and like closing big deals or anything like that. I think it's important for them, for a founder, especially in the early stages, to be able to like get on a sales call and run that process. And because there's
Mm,
no better person to talk about your product and your business than the founder. But selling also applies to fundraising. You're selling part of your company for capital, and I
mm,
think like really important is selling future hires on why you're the right opportunity for those prospective candidates. Like why you're this is the right time to join the company. This is the mission, the vision, what we're going to be accomplishing over the next 5 to 10 years. So I
mm.
think selling is something, if you know how to do that, it's setting you up for bigger success as a founder.
Got it. Got it. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Ooh, it's a great question. I'm a big fan of time blocking and like kind of just taking control back over my calendar.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
if it's I was in the past in roles like I was I had no control over my calendar. So now as a founder and working for myself, it's been become very important. It's important for me too to just hold myself accountable. So putting blocks of time on the calendar for, okay, I need to work on this big project.
mm,
I need to do like a big push on business development, or I need to do follow up for sales, or I need to, I need to go out and talk to X amount of recruiters or whatever it is.
mm,
Uh, I like putting it on my calendar to make sure that I'm giving myself the right amount of time to do that. It also, like, I try as best I can to like hold those things sacred. Like, no, that's a meeting I can't move. Right.
mhm,
So that in turn helps me stay productive because it helps me keep, stay in a deep state of work when I need to.
mhm,
And it helps make sure that I'm like only scheduling calls and meetings like around those things. And I'm making time for the things that are going to be able to, the highest likelihood of moving the needle.
mm. Interesting. I think this is something which I share quite a lot with you. Inspired by the Harvard study, the time boxing journal they have created, because
Mm.
I teach Agile and Scrum quite a lot. I've actually coined a new system called, Sprint system with rewards and triggers. We can talk about it later, but yeah,
I
this
like
is
that.
something related to productivity for Scrum team. So yeah, next one is, what's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Ah, see, maybe I have one and I'll think of it in the back of my head while I say this. I'm not the idea guy. Like
Mm,
I had like a halfway decent okay idea the first like 12 years ago. But it was like really like my other co-founder and I mashing two of our ideas together and coming up with something decent. It probably took me like 10 years or so to come up with something where it's like, oh, this is a good idea. But the way I find my ideas is like working with customers and finding those pain points. So it's I think that's a matter of like where I get my ideas. It's finding those problems and pain points, um, or figuring out a way for them to pay me to solve those problems, and then like, oh, this is a good idea. I should like build a company around this. But no, I don't know if I have. I yeah, I don't know if I have like a fun business idea that I'd want to start.
that's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't have to answer this question. It's
you know,
just
something
something
around
which.
insurance. That would be something around insurance, uh, to really help, just to help with founders and like, people that work in jobs to be just to feel better about taking the leap and making the jump. Like that's
Mm,
something that like a lot of people ask me about, like going off on my own, like, well, what do I do about insurance? How do, what have you done, etc. Um, and I think it holds a lot of people back. I know the
mm,
system is broken and it's probably like thousands of people trying to solve that problem. And I'm probably not the right guy to do it. But if I had the right team, that would be a problem in my mind worth solving.
interesting. Interesting. Cool. And what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Uh, Other than the proposal, I am a I am a trained uh, improv comedian. I trained at
Wow.
UCB, Upright Citizens
Okay.
Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
Went through like all their classes, and technically, I was part of a troupe back in Pennsylvania, and I got paid like I don't know, like $20 a show to do that for for our
Mm-hmm.
improv shows. So I guess technically I'm a professional improv comedian because I got
Mm-hmm.
paid for my
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah. Not everybody get paid for doing stand up. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Jake, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking last few years of building this business and some of the ups and downs. People want to check out Venture Scaler. What's the best way, and how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. Venturescaler.com. Best way to get in touch with me uh, over LinkedIn. Also, it's my email is my first name Jake at venturescaler.com. But yeah, I love to. I love meeting. If I know a lot of your audience is founders. I love meeting and talking to founders, even if it has nothing to do with recruiting. Like
Hmm.
I've seen so much in my career at Uber, Industrious, Viho, at the startup studio. I helped build 40 startups. So I got to see a lot, and I just love like it's my love language is like jamming with other founders on,
Founders.
whatever they're working on. I just find it so fascinating. So yeah, venturescaler.com, and then find me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email.
Perfect. Jake, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing with Venture Scaler. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been great. Thanks for having me on.
Great. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Jake insightful and inspiring. So go on to venturescaler.com or shoot him an email at jake@venturescaler.com. Or my favorite, you can go on LinkedIn, search for Jake Huber, and then connect with him directly. Don't forget to mention you heard him on Founders Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future interviews and with proven founders and industry experts. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.